Hail the barbarian horde. I'm Joe, and today I've got a new kind of video, I guess, based off a series of book commentaries I'm writing on Howard's work. And I'm going to be doing a bunch more Conan and Kull videos this month, starting with today's episode about the Shadow Kingdom. The Shadow Kingdom, analyzing the first mythic deep state, Volusia, an empire in decline. The Kull stories were the first to ever be written in a serious manner by Howard, with the character of Kull preceding the likes of Solomon Kane and Conan the Cimmerian. It happened that his was the first real iconic character to ever grace the mythic genre's pages. The character of Kull was to prove a direct predecessor, as mentioned, of Conan. But he was so much more than that. He has his own backstory, his own tragedies and triumphs, and his own support cast. He is also one of the most fascinating characters in literature in his own right. Kull begins his stories little more than a wild child of sorts, and one who was recovered by his tribe with the youth being raised on Atlantis. The trouble is that he is often one to doubt and question others, and to trust his own instincts and personal opinions over the views of the elder of his clan, Gorna. Gorna is someone who, for one thing, doesn't take this all that well. And the two disagree about a great deal of the past, of how the tribe came to be and who their enemies are. Like a lot of kids, Kull dreams of going to the big city, though in his case he has a very strange and prophetic dream where he is cheered as a conqueror and king by the Empire, that is to say, an enemy of his homeland of Atlantis, Volusia. This and the earlier discussion awakens a fascination for the great imperial city and the topaz throne it is home to. The trouble for him is that what he finds in the neighboring civilization isn't exactly what he dreamt of. For one thing, he is introduced to them shortly after he flees his tribe, after he mercy kills a maiden they had intended to burn alive. How does his introduction to Volusia go? Not well. He's enslaved, then later escapes, is enslaved again, and made into a gladiator, then a general, then seizes the crown. This journey is one of the most unorthodox one can imagine, and yet it is a deeply fascinating one. As a slave, he would understand what it means to be at the bottom of society, and as a general, he would know military men and what drives them and form a sense of camaraderie with them. This is the sort of bond that helped propel Caesar to the top rank just before he was executed. In Kull's case, he seeks to avoid Caesar's untimely fate. Contrary to some of the comic book runs, he is not arrogant. I will repeat that for the kids in the back. Kull is not arrogant. Kull knows that to lower his guard for a single instant, to lower his guard and take meaningless political risks, and to dismiss his bodyguards is unwise. It is for this reason that he survives, where any other character or king might well have died. And the Kull of Robert E. Howard, though, is quite like a tiger, clever, sleek, and dangerous. So that one must bear in mind how Kull has not a drop of royal blood, has enemies everywhere, and so he is careful whithersoever he goes, as he has not been made welcome within the Empire. He, unlike Conan, never quite sits the throne all that lightly. Uneasy and suspicious of most of those around him, one could more easily make a comparison to Trump's situation as the former president and his relationship with the likes of those in power or around him than the Aragorn/Conan relationship I've hitherto made reference to. Now, I'm not trying to make any political commentaries. I'm just kind of commenting a little. I don't care one way or the other about politics. One could make the comparison Robert E. Howard himself liked to make between the Emperor Zeno of the Greek Empire of the medieval period that was born after the split between Latin West and Greek East. in the Roman period. At the start of the story, he's the uneasy king of Volusia, an empire in decline which has suddenly had its decline reversed, and the first king in 1,000 years is some note. It is interesting that the empire has had so much prominence throughout the Thurian continent and is dying, yet there isn't a soul who seeks to reverse the flow of decay. Instead, what there is a secret council of sorts that has managed the decline, seeking only to maintain the status quo, even though that is exactly what is killing the spirit and body of Volusia. The empire has too many laws, too many rules, and far too many nobles, so that the empire has become dangerously top-heavy. The royal palace has become like Versailles, with all its nobles having become effeminate and weak. Many of them are later to seek to unseat Kull and to seek to have him assassinated, even though Kull initially is seeking to rule and king over them in the traditional manner. At present, though, the Shadow Kingdom, or that is to say the Serpent Men, are to seek to have him undone. For well over 1,000 years they have ruled, and though they have ruled poorly, they are not willing to let some barbarian come in and clean up the mess they've made with their neglect and hubris. Theirs is an empire that has no tolerance for outside ideas or individuals, and certainly no place for humanity. In this case, it is a very different kind of great war that they wage from that of the Lord of the Rings. Theirs is one that is all shadows, and that involves them killing and enslaving the spirit of a king once they have completed their terrible work. In this way, they do what countless deep states, such as Hattusili III, Ricimer, the eunuchs at the end of the Han dynasty, the cloistered emperors of the Heian Jedi, and countless others have done historically. The trouble of such endeavors to rescue a decaying beast is that it is impossible. One can reform a state endlessly and still achieve nothing if there is no vitality left in a nation. The solution can often be a change in systems, in dynasties, and so on, with Volusia in dire need of reinvigoration. Kull isn't simply the one of the answers, but is the answer. Shadow Kingdom, though, starts with a military parade, one that follows after a heated campaign to restore some vigor and discipline to the military. In this way, Kull has restored some pride to his adoptive nation. What's interesting is that he's the first king in some time to have done so. Most have proven themselves weak by nature, with the Serpent Men unwilling to allow them out on campaign. They have no desire after all, to see a king fight his own battles and prove himself a capable king. "The army is like a sword," said Kull, "and must not be allowed to rust." So down the street he went. They rode, and Kull gave no heed to any of the whispers that reached his hearing from the throngs that still swarm the streets. This is the belief system that Kull holds to. The military must be trained and not allowed to rust. He's a military man at his core, and a mighty one, something that is completely anathema to the decaying ideologues that run the fallen empire he must rescue from the ashes. What happens next to the unhappiness of our hero is an audience with the Pictish embassy. Readers of the Conan stories will remember that it is the Picts who are the most savage, brutal, and monstrous of all those who live in that era. Many of them are bestial by nature and are implied to be cannibals, as one can see from the Hyborian Age essay Howard later wrote. At this time, though, the Picts are not monsters, but rather allies of civilization. Half-civilized, they operate as a kind of tributary state allied with Volusia and her kings. It is the hope of the Picts that they might liberate the empire from within and rescue civilization. Kull brought his mind back from the dim mazes of Volusian statecraft, where it had been wandering, and gazed upon the Pict with little favor. The man gave back the gaze of the king without flinching. He was a lean-hipped, massive-chested warrior of middle height, dark like all his race, and strongly built. From strong, immobile features gazed dauntless and inscrutable eyes. This is the passage in which Kull sets eyes for the first time upon the man who will someday be his sworn brother. What is a sworn brother? Another term for it is blood brother, which is to say someone who mixes his blood with another and swears an oath of brotherhood. In ancient times, this was a common theme and the deepest form of friendship men could establish between one another. This quite literally was an adoption ceremony, one in which two men adopted one another into another's family, in a manner of speaking. In Chinese literature, one can see this depicted in a manner of speaking in the Peach Garden Oath, in which Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei swore oaths of brotherhood. In ancient Germania, it was a common practice, just as it was in Scandinavia. In France, it was likewise common, just as it was across a great many other civilizations and countries. One could see that even in the Bible, there's an example of one such bond in the connection between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. It can also be seen in Japanese history at several points. In our more modern times, we can see it depicted in The Lord of the Rings, in the form of the friendship between Legolas and Gimli. The two are one of the best examples, and probably the second best, bromance or friendship in all of mythic fiction. The best and most endearing bond of this sort, though, belongs to Kull and Barul the Spear Slayer. And it is exactly this man, Barul the Pict, who stands before Kull. Impulsive and passionate, Barul is wise, however, and one with a hard-headed grasp of reality, so that he's often the more pragmatic one between him and Kull. What's so interesting, though, is how the Picts and Atlanteans, or later Cimmerians, as they are to be known, as are eternal enemies, so that the first reaction on the part of Kull is to glare down upon Barul from atop his throne, not really keen to explore a friendship with the other man, or to heed his counsels. He instead sneers down at him and mocks the other man, playing at being a Volusian king. He acts not unlike those who sneer at him, so that under other circumstances, Kull might well have made an enemy for life. Yet though one with a long memory, Barul is too practical to hold a grudge. In this regard, he is very similar to Legolas. The chief of the counselors, Kanu, of the tribe, right hand of the king of Pictum, sends greetings and says, "There is a throne at the feast of the rising moon for Kull, king of kings, lord of lords, emperor of Volusia." Now, while some might regard the dinner invitation as strange, and one could see why, some might call it folly on the part of Kull to attend it. But it is one of those moments where Kull wishes to flaunt his power and prestige. Certainly he's insulted the other man, which certainly they're tribal enemies. However, at present he is the king of Volusia, and the Picts are clients, tributaries to his empire. Therefore, this sort of display is one that is expected, though it isn't exactly pleasant on his part. But what's more is that if he wishes to wheel and deal, so to speak, he must politique, and part of that is attending Kanu's, the ambassador's, dinner party. What's interesting, though, is that the language used by both men is not the sort of uncivilized, brutish tongues and mannerisms we've come to expect of barbarians because of modern media. Look at how Barul speaks, then look at how Kull speaks. "Good," answered Kull. "Say to Kanu, the ancient ambassador of the Western Isles, that the king of Volusia will quaff wine with him when the moon floats over the hills of Zulgara." Formal, it is almost a sort of speech that belongs in the Bible or in Ivanhoe, two books that Howard had more than a passing familiarity with. This shows that them both to be men with more than a passing familiarity, respectively, for court niceties and politics. Barul, though, drops a bombshell, as he, ever the dutiful guard and man, delivers to the king one message from Kanu, one that has astounding influence over the rest of literary history, not to mention that of Volusia. Kull is invited to come to the feast alone. To go alone could end in his doom, yet it could also be a great show of manly courage. Some might say a fool of Caesar's level on the Ides of Mars would go. But in this story, Kull is rather less a Caesar and rather more of a Emperor Zeno or Philippe Auguste II, fearlessly going into the enemy's trap with nary any fear for himself, and fully prepared to overcome whatever traps might be laid before him, and what dangers any other man would shrink from. Yet all throughout this exchange, and under the surface of the polite invitation, seethes ancient hatreds and jealousies. They hated each other. Silently, their mutual tribal enmity seething beneath their cloak of formality. Their mouths spoke the cultured speech, the conventional court phrases of a highly polished race. A race not their own, but from their eyes gleamed the primal traditions of the elemental savage. Kull might be the king of Volusia, and the Picts might be an emissary to her court. But there in the throne hall of kings, two tribesmen glared at each other, fierce and wary, while ghosts of wild wars and world-ancient feuds whispered to each other. Can't speak today. If the Picts were part of Westeros, they would surely kill Kull and damn themselves. But they aren't stupid like characters from Westeros are. They know they need an ally in the court, and that Kull represents their best chance to be rid of the Snake Men. Kull, for his part, though he dislikes Brill at present, senses there might be something in it for himself. The two might glare at each other, and though they are instinctively against each other, survival and wisdom gained from years of war and politics has made it so the two of them refuse to trade more than barbs and glares. To the king was the advantage, and he enjoyed it to its fullest extent. Jaw resting on hand, he eyed the Pict, who stood like an image of bronze, head flung back, eyes unflinching. Kull wins the staring contest. If it was the recent subversive run of Conan runs before Zub's run, he might have done something stupid by now, such as try to physically lash out or have Brill flogged, and Brill might have broken down crying and begging for Kull's mercy. But, thankfully we don't have to deal with really badly written stuff anymore, now that there's Titan comics out there. But as this story was written before the decay of America's literature and was penned by the flawless literary hand of Robert E. Howard, nothing of the sort happens. Instead, Kull insults Brill, and the Pict impulsively challenges him to a duel. And this is where we see that Kull has tested Brill. He admires the man's courage, and had Brill done anything less than challenge him, or had shrunk before him, Kull would not have acquiesced to attend the dinner. Why? Because Kull, though curious about the Picts in this situation, he does not, however, wish for weak allies, or to dominate the Picts completely and utterly. It is strange, but it is now that Kull relaxes his hostility and begins to show a sense of humor and even a certain appreciation for the Pict before him. Brill, for his part, still seething with rage, leaves to go convey, at Kull's urging, his decision to attend dinner with the Picts. Likely, Kanu would have been oilier and smoother when dealing with Kull, yet here we also see his political cunning. He realizes that Kull is a barbarian, a man who values strength, courage, and defiance towards civilized rulers. So he doesn't choose to go invite the man himself, but rather sends a man more like Kull himself than the soft and old Kanu is. Brill and Kull, though hostile here, are somehow figuring out their own dynamic. Kull is satisfied by the defiance and unbroken spirit of Brill. Brill has no patience for court nonsense and no use for rudeness, and shows himself to be no less of a temperamental warrior by nature than Kull. He has won Kull's respect, though Kull has yet to win that of Brill's. So, that's it for this article. Hey everyone, I hope you all don't mind me adding, at the end of this video, a quick comment about how, as everyone knows, I'm a bit of a writer, and I've been writing for a while on Substack now, but I recently got accepted for a great publishing deal with a really good publishing house. But the thing is, because I'm fairly new, they want to have a mixed deal. What does that mean? It means I have to pay for part of the publication myself, and they'll pay for the rest. So what this also means is that I would have to pay for a publication package of sorts, a kind of deal between them and I. Now, I don't have the means to pay for the whole thing on my own like that, because the best package, I guess, or cheapest one would probably be $7,000. So, and that's USD. So I kind of gotta find a way to cough up that money. So I figured I'd ask you all if you'd be willing to support a crowdfund. The crowdfund, though, would be only for about half that cost, because I could handle the rest of the fees myself. So the whole idea is to ask for $3,500 from you all, and in return, you all will get merch such as posters, mugs, another writer's books, because she's willing to team up with me on this one, and Crown of Blood. All books will be signed either by her, Daniel, or myself. Well, Crown of Blood will obviously be signed by both Daniel and I. And we will ship it out to you, and the money will be used purely for publication purposes. And yeah, I hope you all will check out the link below. We've got a great many perks, a great many offers. Hopefully you all will find that they're suitable. We can't offer the book as such because it's not been published, and it'd be about a year away from now. So I don't think anyone would be willing to wait a full year to get a book. So this seems to me the better option. Now, if anyone would prefer the book, I'll think about putting it up. But like I said, I can't guarantee that. But do let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And I do hope, if you have the means, you will support this crowdfund. And I hope you all have a great day. Take care.